I'm Rosemary. Thanksgiving has just passed, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the usual dread. My apartment was filled with warmth, the soft glow of candles, and the sound of laughter from my friends. As we raised our glasses, I felt a peace that had been long overdue. No more performances, no more pressure, just a sense of true belonging. Meanwhile, across town, things were very different. A cousin sent me a photo of my parents' house. There was a sad-looking, burned turkey on the table, my brother and sister glaring at each other, and my parents forcing smiles through the heavy silence. The caption read, "It's not the same without you." I didn't reply because it was the bitter truth. They had built their holidays, their family image, and their pride on my silence and sacrifice. When I finally stopped showing up, their world fell apart. Later that night, as my friends left and the laughter faded, I stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed with a voicemail from my mom. Her voice was heavy with regret. "Rosemary, I'm sorry. We should have been there. We lost sight of what mattered. Please call me." But I didn't. Poetic justice doesn't need to be loud. It's the raw turkey on their table, the whispers in their social circle, and the silence of a daughter who finally chose herself. It all started when I bought my dream apartment. I come from a family where my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, have always favored my younger brother, Leo. Leo has always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, while I've been the overlooked, average one. My sister, Lily, has always gone along with my parents' favoritism, constantly bragging about Leo on social media. I was so excited about my new apartment that I invited my entire family for a housewarming party. I spent days cleaning every surface until it sparkled. I lit candles in the windows, cooked a feast that could have fed a small army, set out wine glasses, and laid beautiful flowers across the dining table. Then I sat and waited. But no one came. At first, I told myself they were just running late. I refreshed the group chat, but there was only silence. Minutes turned into hours, and my food went cold. With each tick of the clock, my heart sank deeper. Finally, curiosity turned to dread. I checked social media, and there they were, my parents, my sister, my aunts, all smiling and toasting in front of Leo's new apartment. My mom was beaming at his side, and there wasn't a single message, apology, or explanation for me. I stood alone in my sparkling kitchen, the silence deafening. I turned off the oven, switched off the music, and sat in the dim glow of my failed celebration. Then my phone started buzzing like crazy. The first message was from my mom, "We need to talk. Now." I stared at the words, my fingers trembling. They hadn't cared enough to show up for my big day, but suddenly they needed me? I didn't reply. I let the screen light up with her demand, and my silence was louder than any words I could have said. I knew then that this was just the beginning. The next morning, my phone was still buzzing with unread notifications, missed calls, and voicemails. My mom's texts were getting more and more frantic. "Pick up. Don't ignore me. This is serious, Rosemary." It was so ironic that a family who couldn't spare one evening for my housewarming now acted like I was the center of their universe. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I brewed a cup of coffee and sat by the window, scrolling through the photos from the night before. There was Leo, cutting into a cake with a smug smile, my mom kissing his cheek, and my dad holding up a glass of champagne. And there, under Lily's post, was the caption, "So proud of our golden boy, finally settled into his new place. Family over everything, sparkling heart. Family over everything, except me." By noon, I finally played one of the voicemails. My mom's voice was shaky, losing its usual superiority. "Rosemary, something's come up. It's complicated. We need your help. Please call me back." I almost laughed. Help? This was the same woman who had always told me I was just average, and the same parents who had never come to my graduations. Then another text arrived. It was longer. We made a mistake last night. We should have been at your place. But there's something important we need to discuss. It's about the family finances. Call immediately. So, that was it. The real reason. It wasn't guilt or love, it was money. I leaned back in my chair and smirked. For the first time, I realized they hadn't forgotten me, they had chosen Leo again. But this time, I was ready to choose myself. By evening, my curiosity got the better of me, and I finally answered my mom's call. She didn't waste any time. Rosemary, thank God. Listen, your father and I need to talk to you about a small situation. Her voice trembled on the word situation. I stayed quiet, letting her fill the silence. It's about your brother's apartment, she continued. He stretched himself a little thin with the down payment. The bank called. They're asking questions. I closed my eyes and pinched the bridge of my nose. Of course. Leo had overspent, and now they wanted me to clean up his mess. Then my dad's voice boomed on the speaker. We thought you could step in. You've been saving, right? You're responsible. If you helped cover some of the payments for a while, it would give him room to breathe. I nearly dropped the phone. Me? After he skipped my housewarming to celebrate his own place? After 15 years of them pretending I didn't exist? My mom snapped, don't be dramatic. You're single, no kids, and you have a good job. You can spare it. Families stick together. I laughed, a sharp and bitter laugh. Families stick together? You couldn't even sit at my table for one night. You toasted him while I sat alone in the dark. And now you want my money? There was a long silence, the kind that felt like fear. Finally, my dad cleared his throat. Rosemary, don't make this harder than it has to be. It's just money. Exactly, I said coldly. My money. My life. And for once, it's not yours to take. I hung up before they could reply, my hands shaking not from guilt, but from a new-found sense of power. The next morning, they didn't give up. My mom showed up at my apartment uninvited, knocking on the door like she still had control over my life. When I opened the door a crack, she tried to smile, her voice sickly sweet. Sweetheart, we didn't mean to upset you. But you don't understand how serious this is. Your brother could lose everything. I crossed my arms. He should have thought about that before signing papers he couldn't afford. Her smile faltered. We told him you'd help. You've always been the dependable one. Please, Rosemary, just a little loan. We'll pay you back. The word loan was like a bad joke. I thought about all the birthdays they had skipped, the graduations they had left early, and the years they had told me I'd never be as special as Leo. Now, suddenly, my dependability was their lifeline. Funny, I said, how I'm dependable when you need money, but invisible when you're celebrating milestones. Behind her, my dad appeared in the hallway, his tone hard. Stop being petty. You owe this family. I felt something inside me snap, not in anger, but in clarity. No, Dad. You owe me. You owe me 15 years of dinners where I sat ignored. You owe me every holiday where I was too average to be noticed. And you owe me an apology that'll never come. My mom's eyes glistened, but it wasn't guilt, it was fear. She knew I wasn't going to give in. I opened the door wider, not to welcome them in, but to push them out. The bank's his problem, not mine. Good luck. I closed the door in their faces, and the sound of it locking was like a symphony of freedom. For once, I wasn't the forgotten daughter, I was the untouchable one. The silence after I shut the door was sweet, but it didn't last. By the end of the week, the calls from relatives I hadn't heard from in years started coming in. Rosemary, can't you just help a little? Your brother's under stress. Don't be so cold. The word cold burned. Where were they when I sat alone on my housewarming night? Where were they when my milestones passed unnoticed? I didn't answer. I went back to my routine, focusing on work, spending time with friends, and enjoying my evenings in my apartment, lit by the lamps I had chosen. But the buzzing phone on my counter was a constant reminder of the storm outside. One voicemail from my mom finally caught my attention. Her voice was shaky. "Rosemary, please. The bank is threatening foreclosure. If word gets out, it'll ruin us. People will know your brother failed. We can't let that happen. Please, just think about the family name." I almost laughed out loud. The family name? The same name that had left me off invitations? The same name that had never clapped for me? Now they were using it in desperation. That night, I sat at my desk and pulled out the paperwork for my apartment. It was paid in full, no co-signers, no debts. I took a photo of the deed, with my name written in bold, and typed out a caption. "Built this life without anyone's help. Some stories tell themselves." I saved it, waiting for the right moment. Easter weekend came, and the message I had drafted was still saved on my phone. The temptation to post it grew stronger with every desperate voicemail. On Saturday, Leo finally called. His voice was thinner than I remembered, his pride chipped away. "Rosemary, I know we've had our differences, but you can't just sit back and watch me lose everything. You're my sister. You're supposed to help." I let his words hang in the air. Then I asked calmly and sharply, "Did you think about me when you all skipped my housewarming? When you toasted your new place while I sat alone? Was I your sister then?" He went quiet, and the silence told me all I needed to know. That night, I opened my social media and posted the photo of the deed with the caption. Within hours, likes and comments poured in. Friends from work cheered me on, old classmates messaged their congratulations, and even distant cousins chimed in, some shocked, some supportive. I knew my family had seen it. By morning, my mom's text came through. "Rosemary, take it down. People are asking questions. You're humiliating us." I typed back, "Funny. I remember asking for the same thing when you humiliated me. Difference is I have proof and I'm not deleting it." The power dynamic shifted. For years, they had held power through silence, favoritism, and exclusion. But now, their silence was their prison, and I held the key. Their shame was no longer my burden, it was theirs alone. By the end of the month, the ripple effect of that one post had spread everywhere. At church, people whispered about how my parents had forgotten their own daughter's housewarming. At Leo's work, his coworkers teased him about moving into an apartment he couldn't afford without begging his sister for help. Even Lily's perfect facade cracked, and her friends unfollowed her, tired of her endless bragging. One evening, I heard someone pounding on my apartment door. Through the peephole, I saw my whole family, my mom, dad, Leo, and Lily. I opened the door just enough to lean against the frame. Well, if it isn't the family that suddenly remembers where I live. My mom's mascara was streaked, and her tone was desperate. "Rosemary, please, take it down. We can't go anywhere without people whispering. Your brother's reputation is ruined. We're drowning in humiliation." My dad's voice, usually booming, cracked. "We made a mistake. We should have been there for you, but don't destroy us over one night." I let them stand in the silence, the irony thick in the air. One night for them, but for me, it had been years of being ignored. Finally, I said softly, "You taught me I was disposable. Now the world sees the truth. You disposed of me first." Leo tried to step forward, but I raised my hand. "You don't get to rewrite this anymore. You left me alone once. Now you get to feel it, too." Their eyes dropped, heavy with shame, and I shut the door. And that's how I finally found my own path, away from the shadows of a family that had once made me feel invisible. I built a life too bright for them to dim, and I walked away whole.